Big thanks go out to Tiro for supporting today's video via Patreon. Arabella, Abandoned Doll, versus Niko, partners Sidar and Vial Smasher, and Kynaios and Tiro. Well, that's a turn 1 Ancient Tomb into Arcane Signet, meaning that we've got access to at least 4 mana next turn. Or on our second turn, I should say, so Wall of Omens and Arabella, maybe? I think we keep this one and just hope that we can gain some life, because we'll be taking a lot to Ancient Tomb, and shocking down the Sacred Foundry, actually. Alright, we got into a plane, so that gives us a chance to get down the Sacred Foundry intact if we want to. Play the Arcane Signet and hold up Swords to Plowshares, which I am very doubtful we will play. Gremlin Tamer, I don't think is worthy of Swords to Plowshares. It'll likely get wrapped up in a board wipe at some point. Alright, that is a break through the line, so we could get that down here and get down a tap land for Sacred Foundry. I think I'd rather just try and go fast with Arabella, seeing as how we didn't do much with her during the previous game. Although that does mean that we can't play anything else, because we've used both of our colours. Alright, in that case, let's go for the break through the line after all. And that way we can play the Wall of Omens this turn. Already down to 36 thanks to the Ancient Tomb. Alright, but we can get down a plateau with the Wooded Foothills. Search for Tomorrow was suspended by the 4-colour player, I didn't notice that. And a Lightning Greaves on turn 2. Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff, is going to start making treasure tokens. Thought Vessel for the Azorius player. And then sends the 2-2 into the left against what we assume is a Group Hug player. Alright, so we'll see what we draw into. Do we want to start gaining life with Arabella this turn? Well, there's a Gilded Lotus, so we could play that straight into the Molten Gatekeeper and start triggering that straight away. Let's go for Plateau. May well be that our opponent has a negate or something, but we'll certainly test them. Oh, okay, and apparently I've passed straight through the turn. That's annoying. I have a feeling that we're going to get to play this before our commander next turn anyway, though, assuming that we hold on to the rocks. Anyway, Search for Tomorrow, going to ramp our opponent by turn 3. The first commander we see is Kynaios and Tiro, making a treasure token for the partner deck thanks to casting 2 spells. And Lightning Greaves, as you would expect, goes on there straight away. Could have gone Swords to Plowshares onto it, but don't think we really need to do that, especially when we're going to get card draw from this thing. I think I'd rather take the card draw than get another land into play tapped. The partner player takes advantage and gets a landing. We draw into Siege Gang Lieutenant, so yeah, that's really good, especially once we get a Molten Gatekeeper into play. If it was already in play, then we could have gone for... yeah, we couldn't have played our commander with haste. If we'd foregone the haste from this, then we could have gone for the Siege Gang, but I'm not sure I would have done that anyway. Vial Smasher the Fierce, seeing another commander during this turn cycle. Then it's Nature's Law, another player, playing a second spell, so the Sheriff triggers on itself, making a treasure token, 4 cards in hand. The Sheriff, a 2-1, swings in towards Niko. Knight of the White Orchid. And there's a couple of players that control more lands, so he's going to get some land ramp here. Be intrigued to see if he holds up the same mana again during the next turn cycle. He didn't use it on the previous turns. Deciding to tap out for the turn, an Overlord of the Flood Pits, so when it enters, draw 2 and discard. Will eventually become a 5/3 flyer. And that is an enchantment, of course, so makes the first 1/1 Gremlin. Decides to discard Loyal Warhound to the enchantment and makes a Surveil land for the turn and keeps whatever card it is on top. Okay, well, Siege Gang Lieutenant and the commander were both stuck together in the pile, so draw into those in a row. Let's go first for the Molten Gatekeeper. We're down to 31 already. Decided I could have left the Ancient Tomb untapped and tapped down all my other mana, but thought holding up these Swords to Plowshares might be a clever idea. So Lotho triggering again, leaving our opponent with 4 mana over there. Could go for the Subira here, but it does have haste, so once we start to lose out on cards in hand, that might be something to throw down. Don't think there's any need to do it yet until we can activate it straight away. So we will target the Arabella with the break through the line. That will give haste and make it unable to be blocked this turn. Might as well do it with the Molten Gatekeeper as well, I suppose, because we're not going to make use of the mana. And we do get time to play the Sacred Foundry untapped, as we've been saying for a few turns now. Okay, Path to Exile straight away onto the Arabella, so yep, so much for that. I could be really reactionary here and go Swords onto the Vial Smasher then. We do at least get a land here though, so ramping a little bit. Obviously the downside of Path is that you pay for half of the tax on your opponent's commander. So we've at least still got a means of haste onto our commander as long as we can keep this in play. This is going to be the problem with Arabella, is that it just eats removal. And we'll swing down the middle with the Molten Gatekeeper. So we'll see what happens during the next turn cycle. At the end of the turn, once we've drawn with Kynaios and Tiro, I'll see if I want to go for Swords onto the Vial Smasher or not. There's a Fertilid, and can afford to go for the Rampant Growth on it. So is there a plus counter theme to this deck? Can't think of another reason that you would include a Fertilid, really. So see what we draw with the commander. I think all of us decided to draw then. There was no land ramp apart from here, a Mountain Valley. We draw into an Eiganjo. Yeah, I'm potentially being too aggressive here, but we'll go Swords to Plowshares onto the Vial Smasher. That is an Aurum Frostfang. They've got one fewer creature they can swing in with at least after their commander goes down. Playing a second spell, an Adeline. Yeah, Adeline and Aurum Frostfang in the same turn is good. 3 cards in their hand, and they can swing in with Lotho, because it has Death Touch now, thanks to the Aurum Frostfang, as does all the creatures that trigger on Adeline. Adeline does not need to swing in, just needs to sit there and watch someone else do it. So, first strike on a Death Toucher. We could keep them from drawing 1 card here. I don't think that really matters. We want as many weak creatures in play as possible. So our opponent is going to draw 3 here. Playing out Skullclamp after that, does have Treasure Mana, so he can make use of it immediately onto one of Adeline's tokens, and goes up to 6 in hand for the end of the turn. Minamo has been played by Niko, so missing haste at the moment, but could untap the Niko and do plenty of shenanigans. Throwing Archon of Sun's Grace into play first, ready to see some enchantments, so we'll assume he's playing one here. Nice to see Azorius not holding up mana every single turn cycle. A Niko after that, so making the first 2 shard tokens when it enters. And is this on cast? Nope, it's when it enters, so the Archon will see the 2 enchantment shard tokens enter and bring in a couple of Pegasus itself. Some Gremlins from the Gremlin Tamer as well, and the Overlord removes another counter, so only 2 left on there. Okay, Sol Ring for us. Argument to be made for us holding up a Gonjo and trying to get rid of a creature when it attacks in, something like the Adeline. Let's definitely go for Sol Ring. Then we definitely want Arabella, which triggers Lotho for another treasure token. And that enters. The Molten Gatekeeper pings our opponents again. Definitely want haste on Arabella and making it unblockable, so we've got 2 floating. We'll need 2 mana for the Eiganjo, so that leaves us with 4 mana. We can just go for the Siege Gang Lieutenant, I think. And that enters, pinging with the Molten Gatekeeper again. We do have the Lieutenant trigger at the beginning of combat here, so let's punish the partner player for getting rid of Arabella previously. We're down to 26 already. The Siege Gang will make a couple of tokens here. So getting our respective opponents all around the 30 mark, we'll swing down the middle like I said, and that will trigger Arabella for the first time. So X damage to each opponent and gain X life, where X is the number of small creatures we control, currently 6. So we've already got the partner player down to 20. Might be that all eyes are on us now, unfortunately. I suppose we can throw away Goblin tokens quite liberally though. We're up to 32 life again. And we'll make more next turn, assuming that we keep the Siege Gang. We can throw down the Siege Gang commander next turn, and if we've got enough mana, always go for Subira and try to draw some cards. Don't have too much means of making a bunch of stuff unblockable though. Have to see how much mana we've got available to us, because we could just dump mana into this and refill our hand with Subira. We are of course going to draw with Kynaios and Tiro though. A Chromatic Orrery, so we're not the only one ramping ahead with rocks. The Mountain Valley cracked in order to go and search for a mountain or a forest. 4 cards in hand, taps down is 6 mana. And there is a Martyr's Bond, so whenever another non-land permanent you control is destroyed, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. Still not sure what the plan is for this player. If the plan with a Gonjo doesn't pan out, because I am looking to try and get rid of Adeline with that. Maybe something from over here, like the Archon of Sun's Grace. We could always sack a Goblin and get rid of the Lotho by pinging it. Just have to see what happens here and play it in a reactionary manner. Say no to Kynaios and Tiro in order to draw a card. And that gets us into the infamous Call the Coppercoats, which could be game ending, but we'll need another turn cycle for it. Sidar into play for the first time. Don't think there's any kind of trample on our opponent's side of the field, so blocking with a 1 toughness creature might not necessarily be relevant. A True Conviction, double strike and lifelink on his attackers, which is particularly relevant with the Aurum Frostfang. Got 6 cards in hand, so you would assume that he got this into play to swing in against us, maybe this player as well. Doesn't really matter where he swings in, I suppose, from his point of view I mean. Alright, Adeline is coming in towards us, that's fine, so we've held up the Eiganjo for just that. Aurum Frostfang to the right, Lotho to the left, 1-1 towards us, and then pulling back, and just deciding to swing in with those 3 creatures, so let's go Eiganjo onto the Adeline straight away. The trigger will still resolve, but hopefully it will be the last time we see it this game, unless we draw into an Adeline. I suppose I could have waited to see where he swings in with the tokens. Maybe he's being reactionary now and swinging them all in at us when he might have spread the damage previously. He's pretty much out of mana now anyway, and it might be that we can take him out next turn. He could get into some spot removal with the Lotho, but I think we let some of this damage through. We'll be taking 6 from the tokens and giving our opponent 6 cards. A Pegasus token being thrown away is not the worst. So Aurum Frostfang triggering 4 times with first strike, and with the second strike damage, of course, it's 4 again. So we go down to 26. We're all at roughly the same life total, but of course our opponent has jumped up by quite a ways, which is not what we want to see in an aggro deck. Just need to hope that the Niko player isn't going to hold up counter magic on us now, because it might be a main phase Call the Coppercoats that we need to rely on. Discarded hand size, there's some ramp in the bin. Sylvan Library, some lands as well. Ironically, discarded a Shifting Woodland. Niko Light of Hope activating there in order to have the shard tokens become copies of the Archon of Sun's Grace. And then going for Inspiring Leader, +2/+2. And these have lifelink, so that is at least 10 life being gained here. Of course, that is an enchantment entering, so Gremlin Tamer triggers, and the 2 Archon of Sun's Grace trigger as well. This is where the unblockable from Break Through the Line is so important. Alright, a bunch of goblins swinging in towards us might be ominous. Archon of Sun's Grace is swinging over the top down the middle, 4/4 down the middle as well. So do we just take this as well to maximise the number of creatures we've got? These are 3 3s at the moment, so that's 9 damage. I mean, we can block with a Wall of Omens, and then just take 6, I think is fine, going down to 20. Maybe our opponent will feel more secure if he gains a bunch of life here, and then pretty much he's going up to his starting life total. Maybe he'll be less inclined to hold up mana for the counter magic. Alright, so this player goes down to 14. It looks as though he is tapping out, which is good. And he's Soul Herder, more flicker shenanigans. Making another treasure token for this player who has 7 cards in hand though. We'll have to be careful how many spells we cast just in case 3 treasure is relevant. Anyway, Soul Herder going to flicker the Niko in order to untap it. It will come in with Summoning Sickness and they don't have the mana for it anyway, so I don't see that that matters. Niko brings in the original Archon of Sun's Grace as well, and the shard tokens are deanimated. Oh, of course, Niko has the shard tokens on entry, doesn't it? So, yeah, that makes sense. Flickering that, he'll get more shard tokens. Actually goes above his starting life total during this turn's combat. So I think we're going to have 23 creatures between these two. But with this player gaining so much life, I'm not sure we'll be able to survive the swing back. Is it just going to be a case of do it and see what happens? We've got a Knight of the White Orchid, which if we get a land, effectively only costs 1 mana. We've got 5 lands to our opponent's way more than that, so Call the Coppercoats is 5. We are going to be double spelling into this player if we're not careful. And he could have like Teferi's Protection or something like that, so it's probably better to play around it than not. So yeah, I think I'm going to risk having 1 fewer creatures in play. Let's try ourselves a Call the Coppercoats. Do we want the extra 2 creatures from this player for 7 mana? That'll leave us with 5 mana after this. Don't think Siege Gang Commander is relevant after combat. 25 creatures we'll get. Of course we do have Molten Gatekeeper that we have to account for as well. Let's just do it. If our opponent has a Teferi's Protection, then so be it. This is the fun play. Boseiju, who endures, well, so much for that. That is going on to our commander. And how much is it going to cost? 6 mana, which means we're punished for going for Call the Coppercoats over here, because we could have replayed the commander and then gone for Break Through the Line. Oh well, they always could have afforded that at least. And he decides to do the Boseiju play and then just scoop. So does that greatly reduce the number of creatures that we get here? It definitely does, doesn't it? Which means he might have just handed the game over to Niko, because now we don't get as many tokens into the Molten Gatekeeper. Yeah, so we only get, that's 4 mana that we didn't really need to pay for then. If this player was always going to scoop, we wouldn't have got the tokens from him, so that's 2 mana saved, and then didn't necessarily need the extra 2 there, so could have saved ourselves 4 mana here. Still get 18 tokens though, but I'd rather have only paid 3 for them. Alright, awesome. And then the game crashes anyway. Yeah, I dare say Niko would have got us there on the swing back anyway, but ultimately being punished for putting the extra 2 mana into Kynaios and Tiro's 2 creatures with the Call the Coppercoats. Otherwise, like I said, we could have afforded 6 mana into Arabella, give it haste, and then swing in anyway. And with the pings from the Molten Gatekeeper and the pings from Arabella, we would have got the win there, had it not have been for the wasted mana. But I dare say, I think we were at about 18 there, and we weren't going to gain any life, so this player probably would have got us on the swing back there. We were already dealing with Kynaios and Tiro with all those pings on the stack, I think. Or near enough. Maybe we wouldn't have quite got him, and there would have been a board wipe here, but I think it was a reasonable assumption that Niko was going to take us out there, so I'll upload this one anyway. I think it was an interesting one. And hopefully I will still see you all again in the next one. If you do want to see another attempt, a 3rd attempt at Arabella, really fun commander, but we don't seem to be able to get full games with her, then you can let me know in the comments section as ever. And as ever, I will keep a very close eye on the views of this video. Big thank you to the patrons as well. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.